out there, internet world. It's your bearded brothers, and we are back yet again with yet another sports podcast. Whoop! So today, what we're gonna do is we plan to go through free agency and talk about who was signed. We're gonna list all the people they signed or re-signed based on the NFL's official website.
Yeah.
And if they haven't signed yet, you know, there's a couple of guys out there, Russ, Aaron, still haven't signed. Supposedly, Rodgers is going to tell us today, but I don't think so.
Who knows?
Who knows?
If it does happen, there's
he's
a
probably in the middle of
that
another darkness retreat or something.
if it does happen, it might happen while we're recording. You never know. It could happen.
And if it does, we'll let you know where he's going.
We'll hit the breaking news.
And then I'm going to try to cover a little bit of the NHL trade deadline because there was some, like, it started super slow and then at the end, things got a little bit crazy and the Bruins exploded.
In a good way?
For you, yes.
Ha! Nice.
I'm not saying they acquired a bunch of free agents. They sent a bunch of people
They
out
sent
of
it
town.
which way? Yeah.
Yeah. They sent a bunch of people out of town. Including their captain?
That's a choice.
We'll find out where he went and why that's probably not as good a choice as we want it to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Because of where he went. And that automatically makes that their top line a line that nobody wants to play against.
I swear to God, if it's the Avalanche, I'm going to be really sad.
No, it is not the Avalanche.
Okay.
They did, so spoilers, they did very well in the trade deadline.
Yeah, I was hearing some stuff. I was trying not to pay attention too much, but I did hear some stuff.
They did very well in the trade deadline. Lots of teams did pretty good, but there are some teams that you went, huh?
Fair.
And Boston was kind of one of them. We'll talk about it, though. We are not going to do too much. We're not going to belay the point much longer. There's not a lot of news to talk about, not a lot of major things happening. So what we want to do is just jump right into free agency, NFL free agency, because that and the NHL trade deadline are the two big pieces of news.
I was going to say, outside of that, not a lot has happened. So.
Yep, not a lot else has happened. So I'll go ahead and start. We're going to start here with the Buffalo Bills. We're going to grade them on a letter scale from A+ all the way down to F-. I do not have any F-.
Nope, neither do I.
I do have some Fs, but no F-. But the Bills,
I didn't go that hard.
So the Bills re-signed Josh Allen to a $330 million 6-year deal with $250 million guaranteed. Holy crap. But
I mean, it's worth it. You get an MVP like that with how bad that line was at protecting him. I mean, yeah, it just makes sense to me.
They signed Darrington Evans and Ty Johnson re-signed Ty Johnson at running back. They re-signed their fullback, Reggie Gilliam. They signed Josh Palmer, wide receiver, to a 3-year, $36 million deal. They re-signed Khalil Shakir at wide receiver, 4-year extension, $60.2 million. They signed Joey Bosa, who had been released by the Chargers, after they released their own edge rusher, who's been really hurt a lot lately. And
I think it makes sense. Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. I'm not mad at that at all. You replace the one old guy with a slightly younger, better version of him.
Yeah, pretty much.
They also signed Michael Haucht at edge for a 3-year deal, $24 million. They signed edge Greg Rousseau for a 4-year, $80 million deal.
They're going to be good on edge for a while.
They bring in defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi, linebacker Terrell Bernard. They re-signed DeMar Hamlin. They signed safety Derek Forrest, and they re-signed their long snapper Reed Ferguson. Look, this is an A.
I give it an A too.
Yeah, this is an A. This is an easy A. They did everything they needed to bring in new talent, to keep some of the good talent around. They got rid of one edge rusher who wasn't working anymore because he got hurt. They brought in a new one. Although he does have injury problems, he's still a monster in the right system.
In comparison, yeah.
Yep. They've got enough backup there too that if he gets hurt, they're not totally demolished.
No, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think overall this was just a pretty good free agency. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely, considering the fact they didn't have a huge amount of needs, they did good enough to kind of fill in the spots that they did need. And I think overall it just makes sense. They made sure to lock down some wide receivers. They made sure to lock down Josh Allen. Brought in some new edges. Brought in some more help for their defense. Overall, I just think it makes sense.
All right, so now it's your turn. You want to take the next team?
Yeah, I'll take the Miami Dolphins. And they did things. I don't know if they're great things, but they did things. First, they signed Zach Wilson, QB, to a one-year deal. Mostly, I assume, as a backup to Tagovailoa.
I think so. Yeah.
They re-signed wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge. They signed wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine to a 2-year, $6.5 million deal. I think that's actually a much better pickup than people are expecting. Nick Westbrook did really good for Tennessee with a really bad Tennessee team. Like this, I think he can be a solid wide receiver 3. I'll put it that way. They re-signed offensive tackle Jackson Carman. They signed free agent offensive lineman Larry Borom. They signed offensive guard James Daniels to a 3-year, $24 million deal. More protection for Tua. Good idea. They signed linebacker KG Britt to a 1-year deal. They re-signed linebacker Terrell Dodson. They signed cornerback Ifeatu Melifonwu to a 1-year. Melifonwu, okay. Agreed to a 1-year, $4 million deal. Not a bad pickup. I wouldn't say that he's a top end corner, but better than what they, that defense has been pretty crap. So they re-signed safety Elijah Campbell, and they signed safety Ashton Davis to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Honestly, I gave this a B-. I think they did okay. They've shored up a little bit of their defense. They shored up a little bit of that offensive line. I had re-signed the one player that was pretty good. I think this is a decent free agency. Could have been better. Could have been a lot worse.
I gave it a C. Just look, they found a good backup QB, and they shored up their line a little bit. And considering how often Tua was hurt last year, backup QB was something they really needed to bring in. Can Zach Wilson work better with this than he did in the Jets if, again, Tua decides to throw himself head first into a giant linebacker?
Quite literally.
Probably can, but again, like, none of these are like, oh, you definitely upgraded your team. So you're just kind of there, man.
I don't know. I feel like you're sleeping on Nick Westbrook a little bit there, but that's just me.
Maybe. All right, moving right along to the Patriots. They grabbed QB Josh Dobbs to a 2-year deal worth $8 million. Wide receiver Mac Hollins, 2-year deal, $8.4 million. They re-signed tight end Austin Hooper. They signed offensive tackle Morgan Moses to a 3-year, $24 million deal. They signed Harold Landry to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. They signed defensive lineman Milton Williams to a 4-year, $104 million deal with $51 million guaranteed and a $24 million signing bonus. What do you see in him that I don't?
I'm not even going to say anything to that because I don't know what you're not seeing. But okay.
Well, let's
moving on.
Just taking a quick look. Like, if I look at his... Come on. Quit being a jerk to me. There we go. We're looking at, like... He only started 7 games last year, came off the bench, played in all 17 games. I mean, he had 24 total tackles and 5 sacks coming off the bench for the Eagles. I mean, granted, their line is stacked, But to me, that's a huge gamble that he's going to keep progressing and that he deserves starting minutes.
I'll just say if you look at previous seasons, I think he played better in previous seasons.
We'll see. I didn't see it, but Karius Tonga got signed to a 1-year deal for the defensive line. You signed Robert Spillane as a linebacker, and you signed Carlton Davis III to a 3-year, $60 million deal at cornerback. I gave it a C+. Primarily for Harold Landry. I like the Harold Landry signing for you because your coach already knows Harold Landry. He worked with him at Tennessee when he was the head coach there. He already knows what he's doing there. I think the Williams signing is rich, especially for what he's done recently. I don't think he's as good as you think he is. I think he can be a decent starter, but is he worth $104 million? No.
He's not a pass rusher. He's really good at stopping the rushes. If you watch him actually play, he's very good at filling holes. That's what he's good at. And depending on if that's what you really need or want on that line, which let's be honest, the Patriots really did need.
Could he flourish with the style that is likely to be brought?
Probably actually.
Probably. I'll give it some time to see what's going to happen. Carlton Davis didn't do very well. He was supposed to be a big acquisition for the Lions. Never really did as well as he should have. He kind of had a decent time when he was in Tampa, but then he got swallowed up too easily. So we'll see if he can turn it around. He's going to have to really gut through, though, because I'll guarantee you, God, why can't my brain remember names today?
Good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. The new Patriots head coach is not going to be polite to him.
No, he won't. Yeah, I can tell. You're farting pretty bad.
Yeah.
I had it on the tip of my tongue, and now I've just not even going to. I gave him a B. I think Mac Hollins is actually a really good wide receiver 3 or 2, depending on how you want to use him. I think re-signing Austin Hooper was a great idea. I think offensive tackle of Morgan Moses is great. Slot him in, get more protection for Drake May. No reason not to. I agree with Edge Harold Landry is great. I think Carlton Davis will do well in the Patriots system, but we'll see. And I think Milton Williams, is far better than you're kind of expecting him to be. I think he'll shore up that run defense because, let's be frank, the Patriots O-line, as far as run defense, was paper mache. Like, they just got ran all over in the whole last season. Like, it was terrible. Williams will at least shore it up and make it harder for that to happen. Will he get a lot of tackles or sacks? Probably not, but he'll definitely make it much more difficult for a run defense to run through the line anyways. That's where I'm at with that. Ready to talk about the Jets?
Sure. Go over the Jets so we can laugh.
Jets signed QB Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million with $30 million guaranteed, including a $15 million signing bonus and a $5 million base salary in 2025. They signed offensive tackle Chukwuma Okorafor? Okay.
Okorafor.
They signed center Josh Myers to a 1-year deal. They re-signed linebacker Jamian Sherwood. They signed cornerback Brandon Stevens to a 3-year, $36 million contract. Somebody's either grilling or smoking outside because I smell smoke. Anyways, they also signed cornerback Brandon Stevens to a 3-year, $36 million contract. They signed safety Andre Cisco to a 1-year, $10 million deal, and they re-signed safety Isaiah Oliver. I actually gave this a B-. I think that this isn't the worst possible thing that they could do. I think Justin Fields actually has a chance to do something with the Jets as long as they hopefully continue to give him a better O line to work with. They did start a little bit with Josh Myers and Okafor. I'd like to see a little bit more done there. Defensively, they did okay. I really just want to see more offensive line, but I think compared to where they're at or where they were at, I think that this is not a terrible free agency. Could be a substantially better, obviously, but like I think that they're expecting to do more in the draft, so they didn't want to overspend in free agency. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I gave them a C, and that's primarily for me. I'm not big on Okorafor. Um,
I'm not huge on them either, but it's better than what they
Josh
had.
Myers, okay, maybe. I don't know. Um, Justin Fields was obviously the big signing here, and I gave them the C mainly for clearing out Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all of the package
I'm
of
getting rid of a
baggage.
bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
package of baggage that went along with that. Uh,
Yep.
Obviously, the Aaron Rodgers experiment in New York did not work. It was not good, and just clearing all that out and going, okay,
Reset. Yep.
reset. Um, I said Justin Fields might work better because at least he can run away from your non-existent line.
Yep. That's why I'm hoping that they do more in the draft, which is kind of why I'm kind of I sit a little higher, mostly because I'm just thinking like, okay, at least they're resetting, and it's very clear that their new coach Aaron Glenn is making his stamp and saying, "This is my team. You do it my way, or you get out."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, the Ravens. The Ravens bring in DeAndre Hopkins on a 1-year, $6 million contract, which, for as old as he is and a veteran receiver, that feels about right. I'm not displeased with that. That feels right. They re-signed Patrick Ricard to a $2.8 million deal that's fully guaranteed, and they re-sign Ronnie Stanley, offensive tackle, on a 3-year, $60 million contract, and that's it. You know what? I'm gonna give you an A minus for that.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know that's high, but they were already in a really good place. They kept the team together, and they added a receiver that has at least has good hands. He doesn't have the speed he once had anymore, but they don't need speed anymore. They've got plenty of deep threats already. Brandon Flowers is obviously the deep threat of this group. You need somebody who can kind of come across the middle and maybe catch some underneath routes and get those short routes and the little yards that you're going to need off of like third and short. So that way you don't have to have you don't need Lamar to run that for you, and you can get a little bit more off the passing game to open up some holes for the king.
So, I gave it a B minus because, quite frankly, the only thing they did to add to their team was DeAndre Hopkins. The other guys were re-signs. So, to me, it feels like they basically did nothing, but they did get a little better. So it's like, all right, B minus.
Yeah,
like I would have.
They didn't have a lot of cap space. Derrick Henry.
No, I know. I'm just saying that I would have preferred to see maybe them move off of some older players and picking up some newer players. I just would have preferred them doing something more with that defense, and they didn't. They did nothing.
I can see that.
So to me, it's like, okay, you did improve, but you didn't do a lot either. So B minus.
All right, we can talk about your favorite Bengals now.
The Bengals, and they did a lot of things, but
do any of them actually matter?
Yeah, that's where I was gonna say is that unfortunately I'm gonna be pretty strict on these guys.
You and me
the
both.
Bengals, they signed running back Samaje Perine to a 2-year deal to $3.8 million. Yeah, all right.
Welcome back.
T. Higgins is on the non-exclusive franchise tag, so he will be paid $26.2 million this season. They're trying to work out a long-term deal, but nothing's happened yet. They re-signed tight end Mike Gesicki to a 3-year, $25.5 million deal. They re-signed tight end Tanner Hudson to a 1-year deal. They re-signed offensive lineman Cody Ford to a 2-year contract. They re-signed edge Joseph Osai to a $7 million contract. They re-signed defensive Cam Sample to a 1-year deal. They re-signed defensive lineman B.J. Hill to a $33 million 3-year contract. They brought in defensive lineman T.J. Slayton to a 2-year, $15 million deal. They agreed to a 2-year deal with linebacker Oren Burks to a $5 million contract. And they re-signed cornerback Marco Wilson to a one-year
Signed.
deal. And huh?
I think it's signed. Nope,
Re-signed. It
it is
says.
re-signed.
Yep. And then they signed long snapper Cal Otomus to a one-year extension. Um, listen, this is like a C minus. Like they just all they did was re-sign a bunch of crap that they didn't need and didn't improve pretty much anywhere.
I actually agree. I gave them a C minus as well. I said you're kicking the can down the road with Higgins again, and
Yep.
you're not really helping your D. The only good
No.
thing you did was bring back Pirine.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
That was it. Everything
Like-
else is like,
And then the two guys that they did bring in for their defense was linebacker Oren Burks and defensive lineman TJ Slayton. I just
that doesn't
really
move
you
the
think that's
needle
going to be enough?
That
That
doesn't move the
barely
needle
touches the needle.
at all.
Yeah.
At all. You guys need
Like-
to rebuild your defense, and you're like not even trying.
No, instead they just re-signed a lot of their defensive, and I'm going,
And
did you
you're
not watch
still-
your defense play?
You know, the more I think about it, I think I know what the Browns were doing when they signed up. Well, we'll get there. When they made the contract that they made,
Yeah.
because blah, not Higgins, but Jamar
Jamar Chase, yeah.
Chase said he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback player.
Yep.
They just made that
Now
more
he might
expensive.
not be. Now the Bengals might not be able to afford that.
Yep. Speaking of the Browns,
Mhm.
they acquire Kenny Pickett in a trade with the Eagles for quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson and a 5th-round pick. They agree to terms with offensive tackle Cornelius Lucas. They sign a 4-year extension with Myles Garrett for $123 million guaranteed and an average per year salary of $40 million. The deal ties Garrett to the Browns for the next 6 years and includes a no-trade clause. He's going nowhere.
All I want to say to that is a bit hypocritical. A bit hypocritical.
I mean, he
The
said
guy
he
that
would,
comes out and basically said that he wants to play for a Super Bowl winning team or wants to win now, and it's not about the money, immediately folds to the money. Don't get me wrong, a lot of money.
a lot of
still
money. They
feels-
backed
still feels a bit
Brinks truck up
hypocritical.
to his house and said, "Hey, give us a number."
I know, but it still feels incredibly hypocritical.
They did sign edge Joy Tryon Shoyinka, love his name, to a 1-year, $4.75 million deal. They signed Malik Collins to a 2-year, $20 million deal, and they agreed to terms with linebacker Devin Bush. I'm gonna give it a C. I think they handled the Garrett issue as well as they could. They said, "You're not going anywhere." And then they threw money at him, and he went, "Okay," and folded. I think that brings them out on top. So that bumps their grade up. Admittedly, you're right. For Garrett, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
But
I honestly gave this a B.
yeah, I gave it a C, but I do think Pickett is better than DTR.
Yes, I was gonna say you upgraded a little bit with Kenny, and you managed to keep Myles Garrett around. That's a B for me, mostly
But
just for
you're
that.
still, you get knocked down a little bit because you're still the Browns.
Yeah, I didn't quite do that. I just went from the okay, you didn't get worse. Congratulations.
Well, they did lose. Did they? The Cooper, obviously, they traded him away last year. I still don't know who they're going to throw the ball to. I don't know what the deal is with Chubb. We haven't heard if he's being re-signed yet. Nobody knows what's going on there. So, like,
No, that's what I'm saying. Like currently, as it sits, you kept Myles and you got an upgrade QB at Kenny. That to me is a B, or a B minus maybe. But like,
yeah, I just give it a C because, like,
yeah,
what you need to do more. Your team
mean,
is
yeah.
absolutely terrible. Oh, and you renegotiated.
Oh, yeah, they do, but
and you renegotiated Deshaun's contract.
which was also, I think, a worthwhile thing to do because
Yes,
it's
it
mostly
freed
just
up
trying to
some
kick the
more-
money down the road. Yeah.
It did free up some more space, and it allowed you to sign
The massive Myles Garrett
the
deal.
massive Myles Garrett contract. Okay, you want to talk about our perennial, just barely above 500 team?
Yeah, we'll talk about the Steelers. They signed QB Mason Rudolph to a 2-year, $8 million deal with $4.5 million guaranteed. Actually, not a bad thing if I think about it, because Mason Rudolph did pretty well for the Titans considering how bad that team was. So,
And then there was
yeah,
the year that he spent in Pittsburgh where he did come in, I think, on Christmas, and I made the Rudolph the strong armed quarterback joke.
yeah, it didn't really work out unfortunately for him at that time.
He won.
Um, I know, but I mean, as in like that entire
Oh
when
yeah,
he had
no,
that
no, no, no.
season, like I wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Um, they also signed running back Kenneth Gainwell to a 1-year, $1.79 million deal. Not terrible. Um, not great either. The
Well,
big
he
one,
doesn't even have to
big,
leave Pennsylvania.
true. The big one is they signed wide receiver DK Metcalf, or I should say they acquired him from a trade with the Seahawks in exchange for a 2025 second round pick and a late round pick swap. Metcalf also signed a 4-year, $132 million extension with Pittsburgh. They signed tight end Donald Parham Jr. to a 1-year contract. They signed defensive lineman Malik Harrison to a 2-year, $10 million deal. They signed cornerback Brandon Eccles to a 2-year contract. And they signed Darius Slay, cornerback, to a 1-year, $10 million deal. That's fully guaranteed. Um, this is not a bad free agency, all things considered. I gave this a B plus,
I
mostly
also
because
gave this a B plus.
the DK Metcalf is good. Kenneth Gainwell, I think, is underrated. I think Darius Slay is still very good at corner. I think Mason Rudolph, if you can't get, if you don't get Rodgers, and you don't want to bring back Russ, I think Mason Rudolph's a fine bridge quarterback if you're looking for something in the draft.
Yeah,
You know,
I
so
100% agree with you.
overall, they're playing long term. They're not looking at being super successful next year, but they're definitely looking at the year after being super successful.
Yeah, and I like the Brandon Eccles signing too. In fact, I like that a
Yeah,
little more than the Slay signing. But Slay can, in the right
Slay's
system,
still very good.
with the right people around him, he could still be very
Yeah,
effective.
yeah, yeah. Totally agree.
Okay, this is updated a little bit since I did my initial list. Moving into the AFC South, going to talk about the Houston Texans. They have
Mm-hmm.
re-signed Dare Ogunbowale on a 1-year, $2 million deal. They have signed Braxton Berrios to a 1-year, $2 million deal. They traded for wide receiver Christian Kirk with the Jaguars for a 2026 seventh rounder. They signed wide receiver Justin Watson. They have signed offensive guard Laken Tomlinson. Derek Barnett is returning on a 1-year, $5 million deal. They have signed edge Daryl Taylor to a 1-year, $8.25 million deal. They have re signed Mario Edwards to a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. They got Sheldon Rankins on a 1-year, $7 million deal. They have got linebacker Nick Neiman to a 2-year, $6.5 million deal. They have got Tremont Smith to be mostly their kick returner on a 2-year, $7 million deal. They traded for C.J. Gardner Johnson and a sixth round pick in 2026 in exchange for offensive guard Kenyon Green and a 2026 fifth round pick. And they re signed MJ Stewart to a $2.5 million contract with 500,000 of it guaranteed. Whew. Okay, they did a lot of things,
They did do a lot of things.
but I'm going to give them a D plus. I don't like what they did. They shipped out half their offensive line and didn't find great replacements. You got rid of your offensive line was your weakness last year, and you got rid of arguably your best offensive fucking lineman.
It's funny you say that because I gave him a C. I was thinking about being more critical on it, because, like you said, my biggest concern is like, okay, you shored up your defense a little bit more. You brought in some good defensive
Your
talent.
defense was
You
already
even
good.
you even brought in like a another wide receiver to help out. But what the fuck are you gonna do with that line?
Like,
Like,
I like the
dude,
Laken
what the
Tomlinson
fuck?
signing. The Laken
Yeah, I
Tomlinson
like that
signing
one.
is great, but the fact that you
That's
sent
one
your
out of
best
like three
tackle,
other players you need.
yeah,
Like,
you sent your best offensive tackle out. We'll get
yeah,
to where he went. You sent your best offensive tackle out. You sent out an offensive guard that was pretty good, and you brought in a good offensive guard, but you're still. What are you doing? Are you drafting an O lineman? Are you drafting an
They
entire O
have to
line?
be.
You
They must be
have to
drafting an
be.
entire, because
Yeah.
otherwise this makes no fucking sense.
If you don't draft an entire O line in this draft, you guys are just. I don't know what you're doing anymore.
You're basically saying, hey, CJ Stroud, you're going to get hit a lot. Enjoy. Like, what the fuck, Texans? All right. I was a little bit more lenient on him, but yeah, this is not a great free agency at all for him.
Yes, I agree. This is horrible.
All right, let's look at the Colts because they did some interesting things.
They did.
They signed QB Daniel Jones to a 1-year, $14 million deal with $13.15 million fully guaranteed, $6 million signing bonus with a $7.15 million base salary. I think that's actually not a bad pickup because it sounds like they're basically putting him in a QB competition with Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
And it makes so much sense because, well, they're basically the same player. Like, you don't really have to change your playbook at all.
Exactly.
They both can
You just
run
have to
and they
figure out
both
which
can
one-
throw.
Which one throws better?
And honestly, I think Daniel Jones is probably taking that starting spot. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's
He's more
possible.
veteran. He's more ready. Anthony Richardson, I think, still has needs more time to cook.
We'll see. We'll see what Richardson, if Richardson
we'll see.
takes it seriously in the offseason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he takes it seriously, maybe not. But like, just based on what we saw last year and based on what we've seen from Daniel Jones, like, man, that'll be interesting to see. They signed running back Khalil Herbert to a 1-year deal. They re-signed wide receiver Ashton Julian to a 2-year deal worth $8.5 million. They re-signed center Danny Pinter. They signed cornerback Chavarius Ward to a 3-year deal worth $60 million with $35 million guaranteed, including a $20 million signing bonus. And they signed safety Cameron Bynum to a 4-year, $60 million contract. This is like an A- for me. I'm going to be completely blunt with you. They did pretty goddamn good. They didn't get everything that they needed, but I think this team is more ready to go than people think because they just had some injuries last year, and Anthony Richardson, let's be blunt, did not play very well.
I'm just below you at a B+. But yeah, no, very, 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 very good signings. If Jones can wash the stink of the Giants off of him and be a decent quarterback, you know, there's a chance he does it in Indianapolis. At least he's got a good running game there again. And, you know, they did lose. Now, the reason why I didn't go with A, they did lose their starting guard and they lost their starting center, Pro Bowl center.
True. But I have a feeling from everything I know is that they plan on drafting probably because there's a lot of
very
good
well could
offensive guards in the
but I
draft.
absolutely the two pickups that really pushed this to a B+ and almost still made it an A- were Charvarius Ward and Cameron Bynum. Look, I'm a Vikings fan. I have been a Cam Bynum stand for years now. That dude is a monster, and you guys in Indianapolis got a good one. And Charvarius Ward, you took him from the Chiefs. I can do nothing but smile because I feel like, yay, you made the Chiefs worse.
I know, right?
All right. Moving along now. Let's talk about the boys in Duval.
Duval.
Now, you did some stuff.
did some stuff.
Was any of it really worth it?
Mm.
Yeah, let's find out. You signed QB Nick Mullins to a 2-year, $6.5 million deal with $3 million guaranteed. Okay.
Backup quarterback? Why not?
Yeah, backup quarterback. Okay. You got wide receiver Diami Brown to a 1-year, $10 million deal. He's shown flashes.
Wide receiver 3-4, not bad option. Yeah.
You got tight end Hunter Long to a 2-year, $5 million deal. You did ship out your other tight end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I liked him.
I know.
Injured a lot, though, unfortunately.
True.
You also picked up one of our favorites, tight end Johnny Munt from the Vikings.
He can actually catch.
Yeah. Nice catch. He can catch. It's not bad. You picked Chuma Edoga on the offensive tackle side. You got offensive tackle Robert Hainsey to a 3-year, $21 million deal. You got offensive guard Patrick McCarry. You signed cornerback Jordan Lewis to a 3-year, $30 million deal. And you signed safety Eric Murray to a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. C minus? I nothing here makes me go, you're better. Nothing here makes me think you're better. You did get some offensive linemen, which is something you needed. I just don't know if they make me go, you're better now.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm a little bit more lenient. I gave him a C plus because I did the big thing that, like you said, I went. Most of this is okay. You got some more offensive tackles and offensive guards. I don't know if they're better, but maybe they are. Maybe they'll fit your system better. So C plus, maybe you'll have a better time. At least, in my opinion, at least you took the attempt to address the concerns with what money you had. So it's like, okay, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, at least you knew that there was a problem and you tried to fix it as best as you could. So that's kind of where I'm going to C plus. At least you recognize your faults.
Yeah.
All right. Ready to talk about the Tennessee Titans? Would you like to know what they've done?
A lot of stuff.
They signed QB Brandon Allen to a 1-year contract. They signed wide receiver Van Jefferson to a 1-year deal worth up to $2.5 million. They signed offensive tackle Dan Moore Jr. to a 4-year, $82 million deal with $50 million guaranteed and $30 million in the first year. They signed offensive guard Blake Hance to, they don't actually say how far. They signed offensive guard Kevin Zeitler to a 1-year, $9 million contract. They signed edge Dermont Jones to a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. They re-signed defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day to a 1-year deal worth up to $7.5 million with $5 million guaranteed. They signed linebacker Cody Barton to a 3-year deal, $21 million contract. They re-signed long snapper Morgan Cox. And they signed a 1-year deal with punter Johnny Hecker. See? I don't know if it's any better than what you already had. Like, you did some things that were good, and then you did a bunch of things that I don't understand. So, see?
I gave it a D. This is boring, boring, boring,
Yeah.
boring. And there's nothing here that makes me think that you got better. The only thing that kept you off of the F is I don't think you got worse, per se. You got a little worse, in my opinion. But Van Jefferson, Dan Moore Jr.,
fine.
okay, I guess.
He's okay. Yeah.
Hans Zeitler, okay, he's all
Okay,
right.
that's not bad.
Draymond Jones.
Vermont Jones. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Re-signing Joseph Day.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Cody
yeah.
Barton.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
That's the
like,
problem. None of it
so,
makes me think that you're trying to win.
At least not through free agency, anyways.
All right, moving right along to the Denver Broncos. Let's see what they did. QB Jarrett Stidham re-signed 2-year, $12 million. This was a guy who said that he could obviously be the starter, and I think now he sat down and shut up. I think he watched their starter and went, "Oh no, I'm not that.
I can't do that. Never
I
mind.
can't do that. Never mind." But I want to be here because we're probably going to win a Super Bowl at some point. I can get a ring.
Yay!
They signed wide receiver Trent Sherfield to a 2-year, $6 million deal. That's not bad. That's not bad. He's like a
No,
wide
that's not bad.
receiver 3-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right around there.
And that's good. They got tight end Evan Ingram to a 2-year, $23 million deal when Jacksonville let him go. If he stays healthy, that's a great grab.
That's a good grab, yeah.
They re-signed Matt Pert on the offensive tackle side to a 2-year, $7 million deal. They re-signed DJ Jones to a 3-year deal, nose tackle. They bring in Dre Greenlaw off the linebacker side to a 3-year deal worth $35 million. They re-signed Justin Sternad, I think, to a 1-year, $2.7 million deal. They agreed to a 3-year deal worth $45 million with Talanoa Hufanaga. And they re-signed long snapper Mitchell Fraboni. Yeah, you know what? B minus. This is a good, tidy bit of work. Kept your backup quarterback around. You brought in a wide receiver 3. You brought in your obvious starting tight end. You kept the rest of the band together. You brought in Dre Greenlaw, who I think is pretty good. I think he'll work very well in your system up there. I like Hufanaga as well. I think he'll work very well in the system. Overall, yeah.
We
I'll give
just
you.
we just traded guard Ed Ingram to the Texans for a 6th-round pick.
Okay. That again, we just replaced him.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
As far as the Broncos are concerned, I gave them a B. I'm not that far away from you. I'm kind of in the same place. They did okay picking up some pieces that they kind of needed, re-signed pieces that they needed. It's a good free agency. It's not spectacular, but at the same time, they were already a pretty decent team. They didn't need to do a shit ton to make it better. So I'm pretty happy with it overall. So I believe that puts us at
the Chiefs.
the Chiefs. I'm scrolling because apparently I gotten myself reset. There we go. All right, Kansas City Chiefs. They signed running back Elijah Mitchell to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal with $1.35 million guaranteed. They re-signed wide receiver Marquise Brown to a 1-year contract with $11 million. They signed offensive tackle Jalen Moore to a 2-year, $30 million contract. They got offensive guard Trey Smith to a non-exclusive franchise tag, which will pay him $23.4 million, working on a long-term contract, supposedly. They re-signed linebacker Nick Bolton to a 3-year, $45 million contract with $30 million fully guaranteed. They signed cornerback Christian Fulton to a 2-year, $20 million deal that has a max value of $20.5 million, includes $15 million fully guaranteed. Punter Matt Ariza was tendered by the team on an exclusive rights free agent. The tender is worth $960,000, and they re-signed long snapper James Winchester to a 1-year, $1.65 million guaranteed.
The lost third Winchester brother.
I thought worse. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I gave it a C plus just because, like, you didn't obviously have a lot of cap room, and you still managed to keep Trey Smith around, at least on a non-exclusive. Marquise Brown is not terrible. I don't know how I feel about Elijah Mitchell. Offensive tackle Jalen Moore is a good pickup. And then re-signing Nick Bolton's not bad. Bringing in cornerback Christian Fulton isn't a terrible option. Because in fact, I think they got rid of they had to get rid of they couldn't
Ward.
get their other they couldn't get Ward around anymore. So like they could have done a lot more, but at the same time, I do realize they were somewhat limited by their cap. So C plus, they did okay.
I gave it a B because I actually like the Elijah Mitchell. It's only a 1-year deal, and if he proves to be good, then that's a steal.
Fair.
He's probably going to back up Pacheco, but
Probably.
we don't know how Pacheco's leg is still. So that I think he's insurance. But he performed very well in the limited time he got with the 49ers. And I think that worked out well for him. The rest of this, I don't mind. And I like keeping around Marquise Brown. I like that. That helps them. It makes sense,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I gave it a B just because it's not stellar, but it's, business as usual. I do feel like you should probably trade Travis Kelce. Shock. But
how dare we?
But he's getting a little older, and trade him while he's still got fucking value, man.
Yeah, for real.
All right. Moving right along, we're going to talk about the Raiders.
The Raiders.
First thing, they acquired Geno Smith in a trade with the Seahawks in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick. Yay. That works.
They have a quarterback that can throw the ball now.
You have a quarterback that can throw the ball now, and one that your new coach is already familiar with.
What? Crazy talk.
Crazy talk. They recently signed running back Raheem Mostert to a 1-year, $2.1 million deal. Look, he's older, but I think he's still serviceable, and he's probably better than
Yeah,
anything else you've got on your roster.
that's true.
They signed offensive guard Alex Kappa to a 2-year, $11 million contract. They got Max Double X Crosby signed to a 3-year extension worth $106.5 million with $91.5 million guaranteed. Love that. They got Malcolm Kuntz re-signed to a 1-year, $12 million deal off the edge. They re-signed defensive lineman Adam Butler to a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. They signed linebacker Landon Roberts to a 1-year, $3.01 million deal. Cornerback Eric Stokes signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. Safety Jeremy Chin signed a 2-year deal worth $16 million. And safety Isaiah Polamau signed a 2-year extension worth $8.45 million. This is an A. It's an A. You brought in a running back that can run the ball. You brought in a quarterback that can throw the ball and is already familiar with your new head coach. You extend Max Crosby. You bring in a new offensive guard to protect your quarterback. You bring in Jeremy Chin to help out your defense because I don't know about anybody else, but I think he's severely underrated, and I love me some Jeremy Chin.
I don't necessarily disagree. I give it an A minus. The only reason is that I would have liked to see them go in on one of the wide receivers because they really need another person that can catch the ball.
I
For
agree.
example, if Cooper Kupp, if they somehow manage to get Kupp, this changes from an A minus to an A instantly. Like there's no question.
But I think they're looking.
That's
at
the
drafting.
that's the only knock. That's the only knock for me is that they just haven't. I feel like they needed another wide receiver, but outside of that, they shored up the team very much.
They could also draft a wide receiver.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just going based on like what I see now is like the biggest need was wide receiver, and while they shored up a lot of their other spots, which is good, and they managed to get another QB, I would have really liked to see a wide receiver there. But heck, Lockett's still out there. You know, they know Lockett.
Yeah.
Why not?
Pete Carroll knows Lockett. Bring him in.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. So, yeah, there was. I think there's still a little bit of wiggle room to make this an A, and that's the only reason I'm not giving it an A. Is just because I think there's a little bit that they could improve on. But that's it. I feel like I'm being a little stingy there, but I don't like to give out A's unless it's like really earned, in my opinion, and they're just a little short for me to want to give them an A. Moving on, let's talk about the Chargers. First, they agreed to a 1-year deal worth $5.25 million, fully guaranteed, with running back Najee Harris. I think that's an excellent pickup for them, by the way. They re-signed wide receiver Jalen Reagor. They signed wide receiver Mike Williams to a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. Welcome back, Mike Williams. They re-signed center Bradley Bozeman. They signed edge Deshaun Hand to a 1-year, $3.35 million. They re-signed edge Khalil Mack to a 1-year, $18 million deal that's fully guaranteed. Defensive lineman Thierry Tart is returning on a new deal. No information on that anymore. They have linebacker Troy Dye returning on a 2-year, $5.5 million deal. They re-signed linebacker Denzel Perryman. They signed cornerback Dante Jackson to a 2-year, $13 million deal. They signed cornerback Elijah Molden to a 3-year, $18.7 million extension that includes $13.5 million guaranteed. They agreed to a 1-year contract with cornerback Benjamin St. Just. And they signed punter J.K. Scott to returning to the Chargers on a 2-year, $6 million deal with $3.15 million guaranteed. This is a B. They did a pretty good job at showing up some of their defense, bringing back Mike Williams is a great. I think Najee Harris is a fantastic pickup at running back. Jalen Reagor re-signing is pretty good. Deshaun Hand edge is okay, but keeping Khalil Mack is definitely a good idea. And then bringing in Dante Jackson, Elijah Molden, and Benjamin St. Just is personally, I think, pretty good for showing up their defense. So, B, pretty good.
See, I had him at a B plus, and then they re-signed Mike
That's fair.
Williams. They re-signed Mike Williams, so they're an A minus now. And why? Well, first off, Mike Williams can catch the football,
That's true. You can catch the football.
unlike some of their other receivers. Um,
No, their
and
other receivers can catch sometimes.
other times, you just wish you could amputate their hands and put somebody else's hands in their place. And they signed Najee Harris. I think that's brilliant to a 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 1 year prove it deal. Are you the player that was originally on the Steelers that had almost 1,000 yards, or are you the guy that only had like 600 yards? Which one are you? And if you can't get 1,000+ yards in Harbaugh's system, you're not.
You're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the Najee Harris thing. Re-signing Jalen Reagor makes sense. Mike Williams is great. Re-signing Bradley Bozeman and Khalil Mack, love that. I love the remaking of their defensive secondary. Like I said, this to me, A-.
Yeah, I thought about it for a while, but I just feel like I don't know. I would have liked to see a little bit more in the offensive line protection personally, but outside of that, I mean, yeah, they did a pretty good job.
All right. Let's move along to the NFC now. Starting out east. Well, central, but they're in the east for some reason. The Dallas Cowboys. They start with running back Javonte Williams, a 1 year, $3 million deal. Okay. Offensive guard Robert Jones, 1 year deal worth $4.75 million. Desperate to replace the guard that just retired. That's not going to do it.
Nope.
Signed edge Peyton Turner to a 1 year, $3 million deal. Re-signed Osa Odighizuwa to a 4 year, $80 million deal. Signed defensive lineman Solomon Thomas. They acquired Kenneth Murray Jr. in a trade with the Titans for a late round pick swap. They traded with the Bills for cornerback Kaiir Elam, along with a 6th round pick in exchange for a 5th rounder in 2025 and a 2026 7th rounder. They re-signed quarterback CJ Goodwin. They re-signed safety Marquise Bell, 3 year deal, $12 million. They re-signed long snapper Trent Sieg. They re-signed Brian Anger, the punter. And they re-signed their wide receiver / awesome kick returner, Cavante Turpin. 3 years, $18 million. D+? None of this makes me go, yay, the Cowboys did anything! Look, you said you weren't going to do anything, and then you did something. That alone should be worth something, but nothing you did makes me go, wow, Javonte Williams could be good for your team. He had some good seasons in Denver, but he got hurt a lot. The rest of this, I'm not a huge fan of Kaiir Elam, the Kenneth Murray Jr. thing. Solomon Thomas is a former first rounder that never panned out. Yeah, most of the rest of this is just
Yeah, I rated it.
I think considering everybody you lost, to include DeMarcus Lawrence, yeah, that's a D+.
Yeah, see, I'm more critical. I gave him a D. This was, quite frankly, garbage. The only signing that made me go, ooh, was the Javonte Williams as more of a, like, I'm curious to see if that works out, and that's it. Everything else, even the Osa re-sign for the 4-year, $80 million contract is ridiculously expensive. That is dumb as shit. I hate this. I completely hate this. I would have preferred they did nothing.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Just came through on the news. The Vikings are looking to release Garrett Bradbury unless a trade can be found.
So they don't want to flip him to a guard, huh?
Yeah, I was hoping they were going to try to flip him. We'll talk about why that is here in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they don't want to flip him to a guard. Or maybe he's not open to being flipped to a guard.
Maybe he doesn't want to anymore, yeah. Which is fair. I mean, he played guard in college and then for like 2 years, and then the rest was all center work.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's talk about the New York Giants. They re-signed QB Tommy DeVito to a 1-year deal. They re-signed wide receiver Darius Slayton to a 3-year deal worth $36 million. They re-signed wide receiver Amir Smith-Marset. They re-signed tight end Chris Manhertz to a 1-year deal. Actually, it doesn't even say. I thought I said 1 year, but now it doesn't even say.
It just
I
says a
take
free
that
agent
back.
deal.
Just as a free agent deal. Who knows what that means? They agreed to terms with offensive tackle Stone Forsyth for an unknown deal. Offensive tackle James Hunson agreed to a 2-year, $12 million deal. They got edge Chauncey Golston to a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. They signed defensive lineman Roy Robertson Harris to a $9 million contract that has a max value of $10 million. They signed linebacker Chris Board. He's bored, to a 2-year deal worth up to $6 million. They signed cornerback Paulson Adebo to a 3-year, $54 million contract that includes $36 million guaranteed. I don't mind that one, actually. They signed safety Javon Holland to a 3-year, $45.3 million deal that includes $30.3 million in guarantees, also not bad. They re-signed punter Jamie Gillian to a 3-year contract worth up to $10.2 million, and they re-signed long snapper Casey Creeder to a free agent deal. See, like you did a couple things that I like, and then you did a bunch of just re-signing players,
Yeah.
and then didn't do much.
I agree with you. I gave it a C. This could go up though if Golston
Yeah.
improves and shows the growth that he got because he finally got some starting time in Dallas last year. If he keeps growing on that, and then if both Adebo and Holland can stay fucking healthy for a season,
I know, right?
that's been the knock on them. Is the last couple of seasons, neither of them has been able to stay healthy.
That's true.
Yeah. But if they can, that's solid, tidy work.
That's a good defensive play. Yeah.
Yeah, not mad at that. Alrighty, moving along.
Moving along.
Let's talk about the boys in Philly.
Do we gotta?
We do.
Okay.
All right. First, they acquired Dorian Thompson-Robinson, as we know from the Browns, and they got a 5th-round pick out of it as well. Don't hate it. I think he reminds me a little more of Jalen Hurts, which means if Hurts goes down, you don't have to change too much.
He's a less talented Hurts, but yes.
As of right now, yes, he is.
Yeah.
But if you have, A.J. Brown and others to throw to, and you have Saquon behind you, you don't need to be super talented.
True.
Speaking of Saquon, they signed a 2-year extension with him worth $41.2 million in new money and $36 million guaranteed at signing and $15 million more in incentives.
Shocking.
They also signed A.J. Dillon, running back A.J. Dillon from the Packers. I like that. That's good.
It's not bad.
Yeah, he's a good bruising kind of a back. I think he fits the Eagles system fairly well. They signed tight end Harrison Bryant to a 1-year deal worth $2 million. They acquired a new offensive guard in Kenyon Green, along with a 5th-round pick in a trade with the Texans for C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a 6th-rounder. They signed edge Josh Uche to a 1-year, $1.75 million deal, and they re-signed Zach Bond on a 3-year, $51 million deal. Now, this is tidy work, but you're still getting a B from me. Because you did lose quite a bit on your defense. You also lost Josh Sweat. That's a big piece to lose. Yep. You traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. There are a lot of pieces that you lost, but you are the defending Super Bowl champions, and this is what happens. Overall, your team is still mostly intact, but you aren't as good as you were last year.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I'm at a B minus. Like you did bring in Kenyon Green, which is good. You managed to obviously keep Saquon. You're bringing in A.J. Dillon, which isn't terrible. Overall, not bad pickups, but like you were saying, like there's just a lot more that you would have liked to see happen. But Also, when you happen to win the Super Bowl, you know that their other teams are going to come and try to collect some of your players.
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is what happened. So they're going to have to definitely fill in for the draft, and obviously when you win, you're also not going to get a very high pick either. So we'll see how things go, but all things being even, it wasn't a terrible free agency for him. All right, let's talk about the Washington Commanders. They made a lot of interesting moves for me. Let's talk about them. First, they re-signed QB Marcus Mariota to a 1-year, $8 million deal.
$80 million,
Jesus
that
Christ.
would be...
That would have been ridiculous.
I'd give him an F just for that.
I know, right? They re-signed running back Jeremy McNichols to a 1-year deal. They acquired wide receiver Deebo Samuel in a trade with the 49ers in exchange for a 5th-round pick. They re-signed tight end John Bates to a 3-year, $21 million deal that includes $11.52 million fully guaranteed. They re-signed tight end Zach Ertz on a 1-year, $6.25 million deal. They acquired offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil with a trade with the Texans, along with a 2025 4th-round pick in exchange for 3rd and 7th-round picks in 2025 and a 2nd and 4th-round pick in 2026. I love that. I love everything about that, actually. They re-signed center Michael Dieter. They signed edge Dietrich Wise to a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. They agreed to a deal with defensive tackle Eddie Goldman to a 1-year, $1.25 million. They agreed to a 1-year deal with defensive lineman Sheldon Day. They agreed to a 3-year deal with defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw to $45 million deal worth $30 million guaranteed. They re-signed linebacker Bobby Wagner to a 1-year deal worth $9.5 million with $8 million guaranteed. Agreed to a 1-year deal with cornerback Jonathan Jones. They signed safety Will Harris to a 2-year, $8 million contract. They re-signed kicker Zane Gonzalez. And they re-signed their punter Tress Way. This is an A-. Like, it's very close to being an A for me. I think they made a lot of good moves. They re-signed a lot of good talent. And the only thing that I think could have done a little bit better would have been a little bit more aggressive with your defense, specifically corners. But, like, man, they really focused on getting some more offensive line to really shore up. They got another wide receiver that, while he didn't play last year, could still have plenty in the tank. I mean, the team was really good already last year, so it makes sense bringing back a lot of those players and then going, shit, we'll just draft some more players. I think this is an A- as far as free agency is concerned. They did really well in free agency.
I gave them an A+, because bringing in Tunsil to help your O-line and protect your QB, awesome. Yeah. Bringing in your middle of the D-line clogger with Javon Kinlaw, and then a decent edge as well, double awesome. Bringing in some solid help in the secondary with both Harris and Jones. Icing. Trading for Deebo Samuel for a 5th. Cherry on top.
I'm not a big fan of Jones as a corner, and I think Will Harris is okay, and that's the only reason why I'm giving him a little bit of a knock, because like I said, I wanted more aggressiveness in their backfield than they did. But everything else was perfectly done.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. And to me, that was a very good thing. Now, moving to the NFC North, the home of our beloved Vikings. Beloved. Starting with Chicago. They signed tight end Durham Smythe to a 1-year deal. They traded with the Los Angeles Rams for offensive guard Jonah Jackson. They gave up a 2025 6th for him. They traded with the Chiefs for offensive guard Joe Thuney for a 2026 4th-round pick. They agreed to a 3-year, $42 million contract with center Drew Dahlman. They agreed to a 3-year, $48 million deal with edge Deo Odiabingo. Odiingbo? There we go. They signed defensive tackle Grady Jarrett to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. They re-signed linebacker Amen, I'm not going to pretend to say that last name, to a 2-year, $5 million deal. Ogbong Biminga. Amen Ogbong
That's about as
Biminga.
close as I could
Yeah,
get.
that's where I'm gonna go with that. Amen. You say his last name and you want to say Amen anyway.
True.
And line snap, they re-signed long snapper Scott Daly on a 1-year deal. Um, you know what? A minus. I'll give you an A minus for this. That's
Okay.
some good work. Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman. You're obviously concentrating on protecting your franchise quarterback. Bringing in Grady Jarrett and Odiingbo. Awesome. I think that's really going to help your defensive line. Um, yeah. Yeah. You
Um,
found what your needs were, addressed them, and tried to fix some of them.
so to me, this is an A. Um, I think they saw everything, and Ben Johnson came in and went, "We're biting some fucking kneecaps." He's like, "I've learned, and we're biting kneecaps." They went for the line. They went for both offensive and defensive line, shored that up, and went there. Caleb, you will now have plenty of protection to throw that fucking football to whoever we have at wide receiver.
Exactly.
So quite frankly, this is an A to me. Like they did exactly what they had to do, and they went, "Hey, look, this offensive line sucks ass. We're replacing all of you."
Not that,
So yeah,
not that wasn't the right thing to do.
no, it was the right thing to do. Yeah, and then they shored up some defensive players. I just think this is it's it's funny how good the Bears are in free agency
Every
and
year.
every year, and then somehow still next season look like
I think that's
absolute
always been
ass.
the coaching problem to me.
I think so, but we'll see if that changes this year.
Yep. All right,
All
talk
right.
about the Kitties.
Let's talk about the Kitties and the lack of things they did. So they re-signed defensive end Marcus Davenport to a 1-year deal worth $4.7 million. They signed a 1-year deal with defensive tackle Roy Lopez for $4.65 million. They re-signed defensive lineman Levi Onwazuraki. I have no idea.
On Wazurki, I think.
Onwazuraki to a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. They signed linebacker Derek Barnes to a 3-year, $25.5 million extension with $16 million fully guaranteed. And they signed cornerback DJ Reed as a free agent. C minus. I'm gonna be blunt. This doesn't feel like he did a whole lot. I know that maybe you didn't. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought they had more cap room. Maybe they didn't. But it just doesn't. It feels like you really didn't do much.
I gave them a C plus for upgrading their secondary with Reed, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much all they did. Yeah.
Exactly. The rest of that is just blah, a bunch of re-signings. It doesn't move the needle for me. Like DJ Reed is the big thing they brought in, and I think he does improve their secondary, which is why you get a C plus.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
it.
maybe. I wasn't impressed.
So the Packers offensive guard Aaron Banks, 4-year, $77 million deal. Linebacker Isaiah McDuffie re-signed. Cornerback Nate Hobbs, 4-year, $48 million deal. And kicker Brandon McManus re-signed, 3 years, $15.3 million. You get an F. You get an F, you have failed. You have done nothing. You have literally done nothing. None of this impresses me. You get an F, you have failed. You haven't upgraded your wide receivers. You let go of one of your major running backs. I don't know what you're doing anymore. I understand that you may not have had to do much, but you could have done something more than this. And you get an F primarily for re-signing a kicker to a $15 million contract. Are you insane? That's stupid money for a kicker.
So I gave it a D plus. I think bringing in offensive guard Aaron Banks and the cornerback Nate Hobbs are actually good deals. Granted, they could have and should have done more, which is why D plus. But I think that they did something more than nothing. But it still wasn't a lot. So I'm a little bit more lenient in that regard, but they still didn't do much. You are right in that respect.
That's why they got an F.
All right. Well, I get to talk about our Minnesota Vikings.
Yay!
Yay! And they did a lot of things.
They did.
And we'll talk about them. I think. Yeah, we'll get there. They re-signed running back Aaron Jones to a 2-year, $20 million deal worth $13 million guaranteed. They signed offensive guard Will Fries to. Is it Fries or Freeze?
I think it's Fries.
Okay, Will Fries to a 5-year deal, $88 million. They agreed to a 2-year deal with center Ryan Kelly and an $18 million deal worth $9 million in guaranteed money.
Pro Bowler.
They agreed to a 3-year deal with defensive tackle Jonathan Allen for $51 million deal with a max value of 60.
Pro Bowler.
They agreed to a 2-year deal with defensive tackle Javon Hargrave to a $30 million contract with $19 million guaranteed.
Believe he's also been a Pro Bowler.
He has been. They reassigned cornerback Brian Murphy to a 3-year deal worth $54 million and a max value of $66 million.
Pro Bowler.
They agreed to sign cornerback Isaiah Rodgers.
Eh.
They agreed to sign cornerback Tavir Thomas.
Eh.
They agreed to a 2-year deal with safety Theo Jackson, $12.6 million extension through 2027, with the first 2 full years fully guaranteed.
Eh.
They reworked or basically recontracted safety Harrison Smith to a $14 million deal.
Pro Bowler.
And they agreed to re-sign punter Ryan Wright to a 1-year, $1.75 million deal.
Should be a Pro Bowler.
This is an A+
Yep.
to me. Like, they did everything perfectly. They
Yep.
they upgraded our offensive line. They upgraded our defensive line. They kept our running back Aaron Jones, which I know some people apparently were not fans of, which is fucking stupid to me.
He was great. I don't know what your problems were.
Like, he wasn't a stud, but he was very good. Like, I don't see what the problem is. And then I think Byron Murphy is a great corner. The other two are I think Theo Jackson is okay. I think keeping Harrison Smith is perfectly fine with that reworked contract. And I think Ryan Wright was actually a great punter. So frankly, I think this is the best, personally, in my opinion, the best free agency that's happened so far. Now, granted, if an Aaron Rodgers deal happens, all of a sudden I am dropping that out of A+ territory, but that's a whole different story.
Yes. Yes. We definitely do not want to see him on our team. Please go away. But yeah, I also gave it an A+. This is the only thing that I want to knock it for, and I almost did knock it down to an A, is we don't have a veteran QB signed. That's it.
That's true, but I expect that that's either going to happen, or maybe a weird thing is they might draft just a backup quarterback, like a decent guy that they think is like in the 3rd or 4th round. It's possible. I don't know if I agree with the decision to do that, though.
Yeah,
I would much prefer them to pick up, like,
to see them bring it, because there's a couple of like veteran backup QBs that I wouldn't mind. I know
Yeah.
you're not a Winston. You're a Winston fan as long as he's not on your team. I, on the other hand, would say he'd be a plausible backup for in our
he'd be
system.
fine, maybe.
Also,
Russell Wilson wouldn't be a terrible actually as a backup.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Maybe, but I know during the regular season he coaches high school football, so I don't know if he'd be available.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, if he can pass his physical.
Yeah, we'll see. There's some options.
Heineke actually is not a bad quarterback, I think.
I would not mind Heineke as a backup at all.
So, there are definitely options, and I think that they still will pick one of them, I think.
Yes. I think we'll still.
I think they're just trying to decide which one they want.
All right, moving along, finally, we get to the NFC South, and we're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have re-signed Kaderil Hodge to a 2-year, $6 million deal. They have signed offensive tackle Jake Matthews to a 2-year, $45 million extension, $38 million completely guaranteed. They have signed a $1 million deal with edge Leonard Floyd worth $10 million. They have agreed to a 2-year, $14 million deal with Divine Diablo. I like that one, actually.
I know, Diablo.
They re-signed cornerback Mike Hughes to a 3-year, $18 million deal, and they signed a 4-year extension with Liam McCullough. D? D? I'm mostly giving you a D because you cut Grady Jarrett and you didn't cut Kirk Cousins.
To be fair, they probably didn't want the dead cap. Is probably why they did that.
I mean, none of the rest.
I'm kind of at a C.
Yeah, outside of Divine Diablo, the rest of this doesn't blow me away or make me think you're any
Yeah,
better.
like I'm at a D. Like I don't mind Jake Matthews. I think Leonard Floyd is fine. I think Divine Diablo is probably your most standout here. Actually, I gave it a C. Like you did something, but you didn't do a lot. I don't know. Granted, I know they didn't have a lot of money, but still, like this was weird. It just feels like you could have done a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
All right, let's talk about the Panthers. And they made a lot of moves too. Some of them good, some of them completely meaningless. Let's go over it. We got they re-signed QB Andy Dalton to a 2-year deal. They agreed to a 1-year deal with running back Rico Dowdle, which I don't think is bad, worth up to $6.25 million. I think that's an okay signing. They re-signed tight end Tommy Tremble to a 2-year deal worth up to $16 million, with $8 million guaranteed. They re-signed offensive guard Brady Christensen for a 1-year, $2.7 million deal that's fully guaranteed. They re-signed their center Austin Corbett. They agreed to a 2-year deal with edge Patrick Jones II worth up to $20 million. They agreed to a 3-year deal with defensive lineman Kershawn Wharton up to $54 million with $30 million guaranteed. That's a good signing. They signed nose tackle Bobby Brown III for 3 years and a $21 million deal that has a max value of $27 million. I think that's also a pretty decent signing. They signed linebacker Christian Roseboom, something like
I think
that,
it's
to a
Rose
1-year
Boom.
deal. Yep. They agreed to an extension with cornerback J.C. Horn for 4-year extension worth $100 million with $70 million guaranteed. Absolutely needed that. They agreed to terms with cornerback Mike Jackson. They signed safety Trayvon Morig to a 3-year, $51 million deal that has a max value of 60, another good one. And they signed a 1-year deal with punter Sam Martin worth up to $3 million. I gave them a B minus. I think they improved somewhat. I think they're, well, you know what? I'll give them a B. I'll change that. I'll give them a B. I think they did enough things here to go, you definitely improved. I think the hardest thing that they were going to have was just getting people to come to the Panthers. Um, and they managed to get some decent high profile players that definitely did improve their team.
So I gave it also a B. I really like some of the stuff they did. J.C. Horn was great. Rico Dowdle,
Mm-hmm.
that makes perfect sense. Patrick Jones II was one of the Vikings players. He played incredibly. I think he'll play incredibly well for them. He's a sack machine.
Yep.
Um, Trayvon Morig, love that. Yeah, I think that's a great deal there. Yeah, this I think Bobby Brown the third at the price you got him is just about perfect. I think you guys did a great job. I think you guys
Yep.
did a really great job. I think this is a B though because none of it is superstardom. It's
No.
all
A lot of good
solid.
solid.
It's
Yeah.
solid, and it works together as a unit, which I think may do you a good benefit.
Yep.
All right, moving along. Let's talk about the Aints. Oh, pardon me, Saints. Re-signed Dante Pettis, wide receiver, to a 1-year deal. They re-signed tight end Juwan Johnson to a 3-year, $30.75 million deal. They signed a 1-year deal with tight end Jack Stoll. They acquired Davon Goodshow in a trade with the Patriots for a 7th-round pick. They got Cam Jordan for a 15th season. He has revised his existing deal. No numbers on that. They bring back Chase Young to a 3-year, $51 million deal. They signed a 3-year deal, $9 million deal with Isaac Yiadom. And they signed Justin Reed to a 3-year, $31.5 million deal. C minus, man. C minus. This is not what you need. You're already in a bad place. You don't. What are you doing?
Yeah. I gave him a C. I'm not that far away. I'm only doing that because, like, okay, you kept some of your decent talent, like, Chase Young and Cam Jordan, Jawan Johnson. Like, you kept some things, and then bringing in Justin Reed's not bad, but, like, you have so much work to do on that team, and it feels like you did basically very little to improve that. Unless you're going full in on the draft, it just feels like you could have done a lot more to improve your team in free agency, and you just didn't. So, yep. I'm not that far away from you on that.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Bucks. Um, okay, well, we got QB Kyle Trask being re-signed to a 1-year, $2.78 million deal. They managed to re-sign wide receiver Chris Godwin to a 3-year, $66 million deal with $44 million fully guaranteed. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
They re-signed offensive guard Ben Bredson to a 3-year, $22 million deal. Not bad. They re-signed edge Anthony Nelson to a 2-year, $10 million deal with $5.5 million guaranteed. Also not bad. They managed to get edge Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal, $14 million for $12 million guaranteed. They
That's
re-signed
pretty good.
defensive line. Yeah, they did. That's pretty good. They re-signed defensive line Greg Gaines to a 1-year deal. They re-signed linebacker Levante David to a 1-year, $10 million contract that includes $9 million guaranteed. They signed linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. to a 1-year deal. Excuse me. And they agreed to a 2-year deal worth $6 million for punter Riley Dixon. B, like this is actually pretty decent. Mostly from getting Chris Godwin to stay because the reports are apparently that he turned down $20 million extra from the Patriots.
Yeah.
So I think being able to get him to stay is great. I think re-signing your offensive guard and your edges is good. You're bringing in a new edge in Hassan Reddick at a pretty reasonable deal. Overall, pretty good. B.
Yeah, I agree. B. This is tidy work. You didn't need to do a whole lot because you were already pretty damn good, and yeah, bringing back Chris Godwin at the deal that you got proves that he just wants to stay in Tampa because he knows sooner rather than later, Mike is going to retire, and he's going to
That's
be
true.
the number one receiver there.
That's true.
Yes, yes, cannot go on forever with Mike, but he's damned good right now.
It's gonna be hard to replace him too.
Oh, I can't wait for him to rack up another 1,000 yards this season so he can break Jerry Rice's record.
I don't know how many seasons is that in a row where he's had 1,000+ yards.
I want to say it's the record, and I want to say it's 11. It's either 11
Yeah,
or 12.
it's ridiculous.
I want to say it's 11 because that's the NFL record that Jerry Rice set. If he does it once
On top
more,
of that, yeah, I was gonna say on top of that, he's so underrated too in comparison.
yeah.
Like,
dude, nobody rates him high. I have ever since he came out of A&M. I've been like, this dude's a beast.
like it's just funny because the way he catches isn't like you go, oh wow, that's crazy, but he's like just consistently good.
Yep. Every year you just go, oh yeah, and there's that guy.
Oh, Chris Evans got 1,000 yards. Oh, all right.
Mike Evans got another 1,000 yards. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, at Mike Evans. Yeah, sorry. Like, oh, that's normal.
All right, and finally and lastly, we come to the NFC West.
We do indeed.
Starting with Arizona, they signed QB Jacoby Brissett to a 2-year, $12.5 million deal. They re-signed Zay Jones on a 1-year deal, a wide receiver. They re-signed offensive tackle Calvin Beachum to a 1-year deal. They re-signed offensive guard Evan Brown to a 2-year deal worth $11.5 million. They re-signed their edge Baron Browning to a 2-year, $15 million deal. They re-signed their edge LJ Collier to a 1-year deal worth up to $4 million. They signed edge Josh Sweat to a 4-year, $76.4 million contract. Little hefty, but I get it. You needed help.
I get it. Yeah.
You need help. They signed defensive lineman Dalvin Tomlinson to a 2-year, $29 million deal. We're eminently familiar with Dalvin Tomlinson. I'd say that's a pretty good deal for them.
That's a pretty good deal, yeah.
They signed linebacker Akeem Davis Gaithier. I like ADG. 2 years, $11 million. They signed linebacker Michael Walker to a 1-year, $1.79 million deal. And they re-signed their long snapper Aaron Brewer. This is a B. Good, solid work for me. Bringing in Josh Sweat, that's a little pricey, but like you really needed help on your defense, and he's going to help. Love Akeem Davis Gaithier. Love Dalvin Tomlinson. I also like Jacoby Brissett as a backup. That makes a lot of sense. It's a good, solid backup for you guys. Yeah. Like I said, I think that's a B.
I'm not far off. I'm at a B minus. Mostly that Sweat contract's a little higher than I like, and on top of the fact that you re-signed a lot of players, but you didn't sign a lot of other players to improve the team. And that's really my biggest issue is that that team has a lot of flaws and a lot of issues. And while they re-signed a lot of key components, and they did sign at least some people that would help some of their issues, I would have preferred to see them go a little bit more hard in the paint
I,
to try to
I,
fix some of those issues.
I can get that, but like,
Yeah,
I thought it was a solid B effort.
yeah. Like I said, B minus for me. It's
Yeah.
not that far off. It's a good free agency. It's not great. It's just good. Let's talk about the Rams. They got QB Jimmy Garoppolo returning on a 1-year deal with $4.5 million guaranteed, with a max value of $13.5 million. They got QB Matthew Stafford to restructure his contract. He currently has 2 years remaining on his existing contract. Don't know exactly how that reworked contract is going to look. They signed wide receiver Devontae Adams to a 2-year contract worth $46 million with $26 million guaranteed, including a $12 million signing bonus. They re-signed wide receiver Tutu Atwell on a 1-year $10 million deal that includes $5 million signing bonus and a $5 million guarantee base. They re-signed offensive tackle Alaric Jackson on a 3-year $57 million deal that includes $35 million guaranteed. They signed center Coleman Shelton to a 2-year $12 million contract with $9 million guaranteed. And they signed defensive line Poona Ford to a 3-year deal worth up to $29.6 million. This is an A. I mean, they managed to keep Matthew Stafford around. They brought in Devontae Adams to replace Cooper Kupp, who they cut. And they re-signed their wide receiver 3, who's pretty good in Tutu Atwell. Re-signing offensive tackle Alaric was fantastic. Bringing in a new center in Coleman Shelton's pretty good. And Poona Ford as their defensive line is pretty decent. I, I like it. It's an A.
I gave it an A minus, but yeah, I mostly agree with you. In fact, Poona Ford recently was talked about on the New Heights podcast,
Mm-hmm.
as Jason Kelsey absolutely did not like playing against him. Uh,
Good.
because well, and it was because Poona Ford had longer arms than Kelsey, and he was shorter than him.
It's hilarious.
And he was shorter than him, and he was just like, I hated him. I hated him. Other people wouldn't struggle against him, and I did because against bigger guys with longer arms, I was shorter than them, so I could get up under them and get the leverage. Against shorter guys, I generally had longer arms, so I had a way to leverage them. Poona Ford had arms that were longer than mine, and he was shorter than me. He was a freak. Yeah, this is an A is an A minus from me. Good work. I think they're going to be really hard to dethrone on their division again.
Yep.
Moving along to San Francisco.
Dude, stop. Stop screaming.
The 49ers.
Ooh, this was a rough one.
They agreed to terms with quarterback Mac Jones to a 2-year, $7 million deal. They brought back running back Patrick Taylor on a 1-year deal. They signed wide receiver Demarcus Robinson to a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. They agreed to a 3-year deal with tight end Luke Farrell, worth up to $20.25 million. They signed offensive guard Ben Barch to an extension, 1 year. They signed linebacker Luke Gifford to a 1-year deal. They signed a 1-year deal with cornerback Trey Brown, worth $1.7 million, and they signed safety Richie Grant to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with $200,000 guaranteed. And you traded away Deebo Samuel, and now there's rumors that you're going to try to trade away Brandon Ayuk. You get an F. You get an F. You have destroyed a Super Bowl team. You get an F.
I'm at a D plus. I think they did something. They did a lot of weird shit. I have to imagine that they're just looking at this as a full rebuild and they're gonna just draft a bunch of shit. Like this, that's what this feels like. It feels like they got rid of a bunch of players. They know they have a bunch of issues, and they only want to get a team that can limp along basically for next season. This feels like they're going to draft a bunch of stuff this year and then try to draft a bunch of stuff next year. I think they're even not probably going to even. I don't even think they're going to sign Brock Purdy. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think they will. I think they're going to move on from him
either.
even.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why they brought in Mac.
I think they're going. Yeah, I think they're going for an Arch Manning for next year. If I'm going to be blunt with you, that's what it feels like they're doing.
And
It
I
feels like
mean,
they're almost kind of tanking a little bit to
I
get Arch
almost
Manning.
feel like we might see at the draft Christian McCaffrey move.
Oh, I think so. I think he's. The
I
fact that
think
it
both
didn't
Ayuk
happen yet.
and Manning will move at the draft.
Yeah, yeah. I think McCaffrey and
Or
Manning will
Ayuk and
probably move at the
McCaffrey,
draft.
yeah.
Yeah. Ayuk would be a really dumb one to move on, but I could see it.
Yeah, and I could also see them moving on Purdy as well, like trading him at the draft.
Yeah.
Just stocking up as much capital as they fucking can for next year.
Yeah, it's very possible. That's what this feels like to me. It feels like an implosion because they've limped along for so long with this team that felt like they were so Super Bowl ready, where then all of a sudden they just kept running into issues. And I think last year they finally realized that like we went so hard in the paint on this team, and a couple injuries, and all of a sudden we're fucking nobodies. So we need to explode it and then restart. And that's what this feels like they're doing. It feels like an
100%.
explosion and a restart. And that's the
100%.
only reason you get a D plus is because like at least they seem to have a wherewithal with what they're doing. I just don't agree with the direction they're going. So, to me, there's nothing that I hate more than seeing a team that looks like they're basically tanking and gonna make the coach's life fucking misery. And then, of course, they'll paint the coach in a bad light. I think Shanahan will be fine still, but like, it's not gonna look good.
No, it's not.
All right, let's move on to our last team in the Seattle Seahawks, and they made some decent moves. So first, the thing they did after getting rid of Geno Smith to the Raiders, they signed QB Sam Darnold to a 3-year, $100.5 million deal with $55 million guaranteed and $37.5 million in year one. I don't think that's a bad choice for him. I think he's got a lot of the same traits that Geno Smith did, except for he's younger. I think the only thing is he's a little less proven, so we'll see how that works out for him. I'm a little worried that their offensive line is going to really get him in a lot of trouble, though. They signed wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling to a 1-year contract worth up to $5.5 million. Look, guys, we got a second receiver that can catch the ball sometimes. They signed offensive tackle Josh Jones to a 1-year deal worth up to $4.75 million. Not terrible. You're going to have to do a little bit more to help protect fucking Sam Darnold, though. They did sign edge DeMarcus Lawrence to a 3-year deal worth up to $42 million with $18 million guaranteed. Fantastic signing. They re-signed defensive lineman Jaron Reed to a 3-year deal worth up to $25 million. Not bad. And they re-signed linebacker Ernest Jones to a 3-year, $33 million deal with $15 million guaranteed. This is a B+. They did a lot of good things. I think bringing Sam was the right move for him. I think picking up wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling on a pretty cheap 1-year contract is worth a kind of a prove-it deal almost. I think bringing in Josh Jones as a tackle is good, but they're going to have to do a lot more in the draft, like I said, to help protect Sam. I think picking up DeMarcus Lawrence was fantastic, and re-signing your defensive lineman Jaron Reed and linebacker Ernest Jones was fantastic choices.
Yeah.
Overall, good choices.
I gave him a B. Love the DeMarcus Lawrence signing. I like the Darnold signing. But I don't like the Lockett cut or the DK Metcalf trade.
Yeah,
that hurt.
I get it.
That hurt. But yeah, I give them a B, and I think that's good. So I think, like I said, I was a little harsher on both the Niners and the Packers than you were. Those were my Fs.
Yep.
But you can totally understand why I gave both of them an F.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with giving him an F, but I can understand why you did.
Yeah. All right, let's move along to the NHL trade deadline real quick here.
Okay.
Because there was some fun stuff. We're going to start at this happened the night of the trade deadline, like literally in the wee early hours of the morning, we had our first deal. The New York Islanders get forward Callum Ritchie, defenseman Oliver Shillington, a 2026 first round pick, and a conditional 2028 third round pick from Colorado. Colorado get forward William Dufour and center Brock Nelson. Holy God, you did not need to make the Avalanche better. I'm sick to my stomach. And it's only going to get worse.
Oh, nice.
Then the Islanders turn around and flipped Shillington to the Ducks for future considerations, which usually means nothing. Then, as the trade deadline actually kicked off, the Oilers traded with the Sharks to get defenseman Jake Wallman, which I think helps because they also got Trent Frederick earlier this week. They're definitely trying to get beefier for a playoff run. That certainly helps. The Sharks, in return, get forward prospect Carl Berglund and a conditional 2026 first-round pick. The Penguins tried to sell a bid at the deadline. They trade with the Capitals, sending off Anthony Beauvillier for a 2025 second-round pick. I think it's a bit of an overpay for Beauvillier. But the Capitals are in go for it now because Crosby is a machine, and while Russian Machine does not break, we don't know how much longer Russian Machine can keep performing at this level.
Fair.
Then the Flyers, who kind of sold and kind of bought and kind of did some things, they made a trade with the Kings. They sent forward Andrei Kuzmenko and a 2025 7th-round pick for a 2027 3rd-round pick. Then the first big domino dropped. The Senators and Sabres cut a deal. The Sabres get center Josh Norris and defenseman Jacob Bernard Docker, and the Senators get Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second-round pick. Cousins has been rumored to be on the block, but it's always been said they wanted a young center to come back for Buffalo. Over a year now, the Senators have been shopping Norris. This felt like a change of scenery for both guys, but yeah, this was a big one, and I get for the Senators fans because Norris was such a good friend of Brady Tkachuk. I get how this hurts. Then the Penguins traded off defenseman Luke Schenn to the Jets for a 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 4th-round pick. I get it. The Jets are also trying to get a little bit of beef for the playoff run they're about to go on. Then the Jets traded away a 2027 second-round pick to the Kraken to get Brandon Tanev. Again, beef. Getting that on the upswing. And that's when the Leafs decided to make their move. They traded off prospect right winger Nikita Grabenkin, a conditional 2027 first-round pick, and got the Flyers to retain 50% of the player's salary for Scott Lawton, who is a third-line center, and they get a 4th and a 6th, although we do not know the years on that 4th and 6th. That's actually pretty good. Grabenkin is famous for, they interviewed him at one point, and they asked him about his forecheck and his back check, and he said, forecheck, back check, paycheck. He's Russian, speaks English, probably works with Matvei Michkov. Then the big one, the big booper. The Hurricanes acquire forward from the Stars, forward Logan Stankoven. Love that name. 2 first-round picks, one in 2026 and one in 2027, and 2 third-round picks, one in 2026 and one in 2027, for right winger Mikko Rantanen. If you'll remember, we made a lot of noise about Rantanen not signing that extension with Carolina after he was traded away from Colorado. He did sign a 7-year, $12 million a year deal with the Stars after he was traded. I thought this had been rumored to be happening pretty much all trade deadline. I had thought it was dead in the water because it didn't sound like Mikko wanted to sign an extension in Dallas. He wanted more than the $12 million they were offering. But then they pointed out that Texas is a tax-free state and he'd be playing at least half his games here in Texas. So at least half of that is tax-free. And he went, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, we're good. Then the Bruins retrieve from Colorado center Casey Middlested, prospect left wing Will Zellers, and a 2025 second-round pick for center Charlie Coyle and a 2026 5th-round pick. Please, God, make it stop. Then there was a weird deal between the Blackhawks and the Red Wings, where the Blackhawks got forward Joe Veleno, and the Red Wings got goalie Peter Mrazek and forward Craig Smith. Okay. Then the Blue Jackets and the Sharks made a trade. The Sharks send forward Luke Kunin to the Jackets and get a 2025 fourth round pick. It was St. Louis's pick originally. Then the Devils get forward Cody Glass from the Penguins for a third rounder. And then the Maple Leafs make move number 2. They send Connor Timmins and Connor Dewar to the Penguins for a low-round future considerations draft pick. Then they send a first-round pick, unconfirmed year, and center Fraser Minton, prospect, highly touted prospect, to the Boston Bruins for defenseman Brandon Carlo. The Leafs are getting beef. That was entirely what that was. They're going to put him on the top line right across from Riley. He's going to be the big, beefy, I'm going to beat the crap out of you guy who's going to check everybody and everything and allow Riley to be the offensive dynamo he can be to drive play from the blue line. And then the one that blew everybody's mind. The Bruins trade Brad Marchand, the Rat, for a conditional 2027 second round pick. The condition is if he plays at least half of the playoff games with his new club, they will acquire their 2028 first round pick. He was traded to the Florida Panthers. Now that top line is going to be Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Matthew Tkachuk. I'm sorry, I don't want to take the ice against that line. I fear for my very ribs.
You don't need those.
You won't have any after they're finished with you. That's a nasty, nasty line. They're just going to go out there and beat the tar out of you.
Figures.
Yeah. Like I said, the Bruins exploded.
Yeah.
Then there was a nice little fun pick where the Senators would get from the Sharks forward Fabian Zetterlund, center Tristan Robbins, a prospect, and an unconfirmed fourth-round pick to get back. The Sharks would get back prospect forward Zach Ostapchuk, left winger Noah Gregor, and a 2025 second-round pick. The Utah Hockey Club traded away Victor Soderstrom, winger prospect Akurati, and this is the fun one, Shea Weber, who's currently in the Hall of Fame's contract, which is still active, for a 2026 sixth-round pick. The Rangers trade off Rangers get prospect Nicholas Aube-Kubel for defenseman Eric Brandstrom from the Sabres. The Avs make one more trade, sending Giovanni Smith to the Flyers, forward Giovanni Smith, and receiving back defenseman Eric Johnson. Like they needed more help. Then the Sabres traded defenseman Henri Yokiharu.
Enough.
For a 2026 fourth. And then there were a couple of little, AHL deals.
Right.
But yeah, the big ones were obviously Marchand going to the Panthers, which nobody saw coming, and now Bruins fans are crying.
Yeah.
Brandon Carlo
Good.
over to the Leafs. And I mean, friggin' the Colorado Avalanche got way better. So did the friggin' Stars. God.
Classic.
Yeah, I am. I was very, very I watched all of that and I went, damn. So yeah, that's our recap of the NHL trade deadline. I did do a TikTok on my own personal TikTok about winners and losers. Quick recap: Colorado obviously a winner, Dallas obviously a winner. Strangely enough, Boston, because they were not quite in the playoffs and they have won every game since the trade deadline. Winner, because they acquired assets for the future to help them rebuild. Florida, obvious winner. Losers, obviously, I said to me, there were some teams that just straight didn't do anything. The Canucks, obvious losers to me. The Hurricanes, I don't think Stankoven doesn't make them better, and you got magic beans. I mean, those first-round picks could be anything, and who knows how good Dallas is going to be. They could be essentially high seconds. Which is probably where they're going to be honest with you. Unless you package those to move up or something, I don't think that makes your team better. Penguins, also losers. You sold, but you didn't sell enough. Rickard Rakell should have moved. I know that everybody was saying Crosby, but we all knew he wasn't going to move. I think he should have, but obviously wasn't going to. Obvious loser again. And then there were just a bunch of teams, and to me, also the Red Wings, losers. You didn't do anything. You did nothing. You're not trying to make your team good enough to make the playoffs. What are you doing? Why are you grabbing Peter Mrazek? What? Okay. So yeah.
Choices.
Yeah, choices. Bad ones. That's why I said, that's kind of my little retake there. Don't have much else. We do want to say that we are going to take the next 2 weeks off. Because we are going to be researching for the draft. We will be back the first week of next month, where we will review the offensive side of the draft. First rounders, people we think could be first rounders, and maybe some hidden gems. We will do, the week after that, we'll do the defense, same thing. The week after that, we'll have our mock draft. And the week after that, when it happens, I think it's a Thursday. It's either a Thursday or a Friday. I want to say it's a Thursday this week. This year. We will watch the draft. It will not be a live stream, but we will record ourselves watching and reacting to the draft and going, what were they thinking? Or, no, that's a great pick.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, look, there's a trade.
Yep. Which I think there will be some.
I think there will be some. There haven't been a lot over the past couple of years. There have been some, though, that were out the box. A.J. Brown.
True.
And, we'll do that. So in the meantime, what we're going to tell you is we believe in all of you. We know you can do it. If you put your mind to it, go ahead and accomplish what you believe that you can. We will tell you, stay bearded.